Damn. There's something real ironic about me doing this video talking about barbershops when I need a haircut real bad. But anyway, that's besides the point. I'ma just hope my barber don't see this. Shout out Marvin Pete, go book with him. Welcome to Chris After Class. Today, as you see by the title, we'll be discussing Barbershop Intelligence. Now, before we dive into anything, please bear with me. This is my first YouTube video, my first real video in probably 2 years, almost 3 years. So I'm rusty. So when you catch me looking at my little outline over here, don't say nothing. If you see my eye contact is off, don't say nothing. If the audio was kind of off because I forgot how to edit my audio, don't say nothing. Just bear with me. I'm gonna get all my cards back in order over time as we get through these videos. But anyway, let's get straight into the topic. So barbershop intelligence, when you hear that phrase, everybody might think of something different. You know, one person might think this, one person might think that. Today, we're gonna talk about my definition. And what I'm hoping is after I tell you my definition, whatever definition you had, you throw that in the trash and you start to inherit my definition so that we can start being aligned. You know what I'm saying? So the barbershop. First, let me clear something up. This is not me trying to talk trash about the barbershop in itself. It's more so just the environment in which these conversations take place, you know, because as Black people, one thing we're going to do is find communal space. The barbershop, nail salons, hair salon, the lash tech salon studios, the wax studios, even the basketball court, the front porch, the backyard. We gonna find some place to sit down and have Black people conversations. So it's not me talking trash on the culture of communion and getting together and having these conversations, but what are we sitting in these spaces actually talking about? So the barbershop, we know, serves almost as a means of therapy. Like it's that real good group chat that you got in your phone where you see the good memes, y'all talking about serious stuff, y'all talking about BS, y'all talking about the latest TV show or the games or whatever. That's kind of what the barbershop is. Aside from just getting your haircut, it's a space where you can go to vent. It's a space where you can go to get advice, whether it's good or bad. We're not going to talk about. It's a space where you just go to express yourself and you kind of get to be around other people that are similar to you. But I'm sure we've all had that experience where you sitting in the barbershop and somebody might ask a good question or bring something up or something might be up on the TV and y'all start talking about it and it's a good conversation and then somebody just throw something out there that throw everybody off. Or what's even worse, somebody say something that only throws you off and everybody else just cool. Hey, yo, bro, you know what's crazy? You know, Harriet Tubman wasn't real.
Yeah, she was just a spy for
The U.S. CIA. They said if you do this for us,
in 150 years, we'll put you on a $20 bill. Don't lift your chin up a little bit.
That's what I mean by barbershop intelligence. My definition of barbershop intelligence, if I had to give one and write down on paper, would be a form of pseudo scholarship that's high in three things: confidence, conviction, and conspiracy. Confidence, conviction, and conspiracy. You could replace conviction with charisma if you wanted to, same thing. And so we know when we go into these spaces, it's not just about asking the barber, hey, give me a taper, give me a 1.5 on the top, keep the goatee in the stash, cut the facial hair. But I'm going to go in here and I'm probably going to hear something where when I leave, I'm going to be asking myself, like, is this really where we at? Like, how did we even get to this point? Now, let's start with the good about the barbershop first. Like I said, bro, the barbershop, along with a bunch of other different spaces that Black people have used as communion, especially where we are kind of tapping into our cosmetic side, those places serve as social institutions, for lack of better words. Like it's one of the places where Black men can go historically and in the current day where you can kind of like speak freely. Like I said, good or bad, we're not going to talk about that. But, you know, it's no bosses walking around. There's no police walking around surveilling you. It's no white gaze that's influencing the conversation, right? It's Black people sitting in a room having conversation while we do other things, getting haircuts and watching the game and doing whatever. I ended up finding a dissertation that put this whole concept into many, many more words and much more thoughtful words than I was able to. This dissertation is by Shatima Janique Jones. And to kind of paraphrase what she said, she essentially said that the barbershop is like a ritual space. It's a space where blackness is constantly performed and affirmed, right? Performed in the sense that, you know, the handshakes, you know, when you walk in and you dap them up, the slang that you use, the way that somebody tells a joke, all of those different things play into the social aspect of the barbershop, right? It's like a cultural script almost, where you go in, and if you from that neighborhood or dudes in that shop, you almost feel like you at home sometimes, right? Now, you mix that bonding, that positive experience, those conversations with the centuries of lies and deceit and violence and betrayal that Black people have survived and continue to persevere through while being in the United States. And you end up with these crazy conversations and these crazy talking points. But they all kind of come from these seeds of truth, major seeds, really big seeds, seeds that will almost like blow your mind and what some people would say radicalize you, but then we turn them into something else. For example, when somebody learns about the Tuskegee syphilis study, right, where for 40 years, I want to say from 1932 to 72, these scientists injected over 400 Black men with syphilis just to, you know, kind of see what would happen, like lab rats. A person learns about that and that can flip a switch in their brain. Okay. So when that switch goes off and you kind of almost turn into what you could say is a skeptic, for lack of better words, that skepticism introduces itself in these social spaces. And over time, once almost everybody is kind of sharing that skepticism, that healthy skepticism turns into just this otherworldly, like full-blown performance of pseudo or anti-intellectualism where you don't need no proof, you don't need a study, you don't need to put forth any expertise that you may or may not have. You don't even got to say you heard it from this dude who studies it. All you got to do is know how to deliver it in the right way. The Barbershop Intelligence feels true to a lot of people because it's delivered with, like I said, that confidence, that charisma. Those are the things where you can almost kind of sell anything to some people and they just gonna buy it, right? It's not about being right, being correct, or being smart. It's about being able to convince people that you're right. Now, that same dissertation that I referenced earlier for positive things about the barbershop, she also talks about how the barbershop is not about facts, so to speak. It's more so about the ritual aspect of conversation and the delivery in which those conversations are given. That's going to determine who's the scholar in the room versus the person that's listening, or the dumbass or the dummy. And so somebody in the shop can just at any given moment look up and say something like, hey, I know y'all know that we can cure autism with turpentine, right? And depending on how they leaning back in the chair with the cape on, the cut might be crispy already. That might be Unc, you know, who you done seen at the barbershop your whole life. Everybody know him, he cool. People gonna be in that room and believe what he's saying with no proof whatsoever. It's not just the information that he's giving, it's the performance of it all. And so then what happens when you challenge what Unc just said, where he said you can cure autism with turpentine? When you try to challenge that, they gonna hit you with stuff like, oh, here go that school stuff again. Here go that indoctrination. Oh, you just don't know. You just not hip. Oh, you still believe blah, blah, blah. You still blah, 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 blah. And that's what I mean when I say a lot of the barbershop intelligence is just anti-intellectualism disguised up under this cape and disguised under this haircut. And I believe Bell Hooks talked about this in her book, Teaching to Transgress. She said something along the lines of like formal education can feel like betrayal instead of liberation. And so to that point, the barbershop is something that runs on rhythm and it runs on, you know, cultural performance, kind of like sitting in front of this camera with this microphone. If you break up that script, right, if you are the wrench in the chain, then you are like you seen as the outsider. In the dissertation that I keep referencing, she calls this boundary making. By boundary making, she's talking about how spaces naturally develop these rules on how to talk, what to say, when to speak up, when not to speak up. And so what happens when you break the rules? You liable to get clowned. At best, you get ignored, but you probably gonna get clowned in some way. So now when you combine the cultural performance with the cultural boundary, what do you have? You end up with these full-blown conspiracy-driven conversations where people are genuinely sitting there trying to learn something, but they're ingesting nothing but anti-intellectual pseudoscience, stuff that you could go on and look at Dr. Umar compilations and learn about. I mean, we've all heard them. I got an extensive list of them.
The real Jews are black. NASA faked the moon landing.
Bill Gates is using
the vax to track black people.
Like every time you hear one of these theories, it's either it's a name like a Bill Gates or it's they. Now, if you ask them who is they not going to be able to answer the question. But the funny thing is, due to the boundary making, nobody even asks who they is. It's just kind of like they. In a book called Dying of Whiteness by Jonathan Metzl, I'm pronouncing that wrong, so just bear with me. I apologize. But in that book, he has this excerpt where he briefly gives a quote that I'm paraphrasing, but it talks about this white person, a poor white person, basically saying that they would never vote for Obama because the idea of Obamacare, they hated the idea of all their tax money going to Mexicans and welfare queens. Right now, why did I bring that up? In the barbershop, like we've talked about the conspiracy theories and like the outlandish fantasy land stuff that we could kind of almost sit back and laugh at because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, a lot of these conversations also deal with very real life things. And I use that quote in particular because you'll often hear a lot of black people just in general, but like we talking about the barbershop, but in general, you'll hear a lot of black people say stuff like immigration is not our problem, or the dealing with the illegals doesn't concern us. It's time for us to rest. When you may ask them why, and they'll say stuff like, oh, those illegals are taking our jobs, or the country is using those illegals. They're using our tax dollars to help those illegals do blah, 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 and find refuge. And I don't want my money going to those people and blah, 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 blah. And it's this conspiracy where you believe that these people are ruining your life, right? You believe that this marginalized group is having this major effect on the way that you navigate your daily life. But because you don't know that, you're bringing this into the barbershop and you're influencing other people to start having these thoughts like, damn, maybe those illegals really are taking my tax dollars, or damn, maybe those Mexicans really are taking my job. My cousin did get fired last week. I am having a hard time finding a job. Maybe it's because there's too many immigrants, and it's those types of theories that aren't just for play. It's not like, oh, NASA faked the moon landing. I could kind of laugh that off. Because now people are going to start running around with these ideas. In that book, Dying of Whiteness, he also has another quote where he says conspiracies often make the disempowered feel empowered, right? But they also can lead to making self-destructive choices. Like we just said, we talk about how sometimes these conspiracy theories are really doing more harm than good. It's one thing where if you somebody like me who enjoy conspiracy here and there just for the fun of it, you know what I'm saying? Like how can I take what I'm seeing with my eyeballs and just kind of bend it and make connections with it and say, okay, this is what I theorized by seeing A, B, and C. I'm twisting it. Like I see it as FECAB, right? Because it's like I do that for fun. But it's different when I'm actually making real life choices based off these conspiracy theories, conspiracy in the sense that I'm just navigating and making decisions as if like it's some secret they that's hovering over my head trying to make me do one thing, and I'm gonna just do the other thing with no type of expertise or science or research backing the decision that I'm making, right? Not saying that all conspiracy theories are wrong, not saying they're all just outlandish and fantasy, but it's when we start believing in these things without anything to prove it. And so these decisions lead to self-destructive behaviors like being afraid of therapy, being afraid of going to the doctor, like, to get checkups and things like that. Ignoring real political organizing and trading it off for like spiritual warfare or like TikTok fodder, like stuff that don't really impact your daily life. You kind of push the real stuff to the side because it's easier to deal with this other stuff. I got a whole nother video coming up on that. But in that barbershop, a lot of dudes love talking about Hebrew Israelites and 5% this and Nation of Islam that. But if we start talking about what's going on outside, like the political climate, like how a lot of y'all voted for Trump, they don't want to talk about that. So now the question is, what do we do? And my answer is, I don't know. To be quite frank, I don't even go to the barbershop anymore because those types of conversations were just like giving me chronic migraines. And it's like every 2 weeks when I go to the barber, I don't want to have to deal with the lingering headache because somebody talked about how the earth is flat and we live in this dome and we have a hollow earth where like Jurassic Park lives up under it. Like, I don't want to have the migraine from that every other week. You know, I go to a barber who he got the studio set up. You know, I go in, he the only one in there. It's just me and him. You know, if somebody come in and they gotta wait, cool. But it ain't 15 dudes in the shop talking about LeBron James being the Antichrist because he got that tattoo on his chest. But it's like, you know, we not finna shut the barbershop down. Like, it ain't nothing crazy like that. We just gotta respect the space for what it is, for one, a communal space, right? Something that's absolutely necessary. So I would never suggest getting rid of these spaces where we come together and we bounce ideas off one another and we, you know, go in these attempts to learn or get advice. But I would say if you're gonna go, if you up for it, maybe just try to challenge the content. Even though I know we talked about the boundary making, I do believe that, you know, with our generation coming up, it's different people going into the barbershop. It's not just one of me. It might be 4 of me. You know what I'm saying? It might be 6 of me, right? So if I go in and I might challenge the content, maybe I don't get as much of the admonishment and the pushback and being looked at as like some kind of outsider as you would, you know, if we talking 10, 15 years ago. Because at the end of the day, just like YouTube, the barbershop is a performance space. So we not trying to kill the culture of the barbershop. At the end of the day, what we need is better performances. And what qualifies as a better performance? Truth that still talks black. Truth that still thinks black. Truth that still moves with the same rhythm. But with that blackness and that rhythm comes the receipts. It's the same cut, but we got to make the takes a little bit sharper. That was my corny little 1 bar. I'm not good at those, but I'm gonna start throwing them in there just to make myself laugh. Same cut, but make the takes sharper. You know, I feel like part of the revolution can be funny. It could be fresh, but it could also be peer reviewed. Then folks in your barbershop could be prophets, or they could just be sharing what they learned from the latest Tubi movie. Shout out to The System, my favorite movie of all time. Either way, what we gotta do is stop confusing confidence with correctness. You gotta ask people questions. You gotta push back against some of that BS that you be hearing. You don't want to let your comfort turn into complacency. What I would like for you to do is in the comments below, drop the wildest thing that you've ever heard in the barbershop. Because I gave a few, and the few that I gave are not fake. Like that one about taking the turpentine to cure autism. I'm not even going to tell y'all who told me that. It wasn't even in the barbershop. But I don't even want to make myself look bad. So we just going to leave it at somebody's. They said it. We going to leave it at they said it. We just going to leave it mystical. But that's the video for today. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope you come back for another one. Peace.